Hey everybody, I'm just going to go through a brief concern that we've had that's been brought forward regarding our detank regulators and the Hamilton T1. We believe that all of the regulators that are on the aircraft have been tested and have passed. However, prior to our testing, we've actually found a few regulators that have failed a flow test. So kind of what I want to talk to you about, it's a 50 psi regulator, and there are a couple of regulators that we've come across. They've been removed out of service for stars, but I think we still need to be very cognizant of this given the fact that we may come across these on ground ambulances and so forth. But what's happening is when the Hamilton T1 is doing an inspiratory draw, the PSI on the regulator is dropping down below the required limit. So what might happen is you will get an oxygen supply failed alarm on the Hamilton T1. And I just want to talk a little bit about how we're going to go ahead and address this and troubleshoot this. So key thing is when you're opening your D-tank, you actually want to make sure that you're opening up all the way. Don't be lazy and just crack it so that there's somewhat of a flow. It needs to be opened all the way, and okay, by technicalities you should kind of back it off by a quarter turn. You need to ensure that your PSI is up to an appropriate level. And obviously for our purposes that should be at least over around 2,000, but for certain above 500. We want to make sure that our quick connect is firmly secured with a pullback test. So as you know, sometimes we can get a little sloppy, we don't hook this up properly, it looks like it's hooked up, but I can pull apart and therefore there's no flow going. So we want to make sure that that's happened as well. Another source could be at the GISS port over here, that could be loose, and you would notice that by a leak. So when you start ventilation, and this is one of the ventilators that has failed in the past, after a few seconds or a few breaths, you're going to see an oxygen supply failed. You can notice that my target FiO2 is 100% and I have an oxygen supply failed alarm. I'm going to immediately check my source, ensure that I have enough oxygen in the tank, check my connections, check everything around this way here, and if I'm confident that I have 100% FiO2 flowing, next I'm going to hit the monitoring tab and I'm going to look at the delivered FiO2. So it's showing here that my delivered FiO2 is 103%, my target is 100. So what we believe is happening is the ventilator is just not getting the required FiO2 to make the sensor happy. I want to caution everybody, we don't want to have this alarm and become complacent with this. I think when you have an oxygen supply failed alarm, we always have to take it with serious matter. We're going to make sure that our source is full. We're going to confirm this, and I would suggest we're not going to silence this alarm, but in this situation I'm going to accept this alarm. I can look at my PSI regulator and I can actually see there is inspiratory draw. I can see that my pressure is going down. I can see that everything is flowing. And again, my FiO2 monitor in the cell is actually saying that I'm delivering the sufficient oxygen. On the flip side, and just to demonstrate this, if I have a disconnect, I'm going to get an oxygen supply failed and my delivered FiO2 is going to drop. So I've just disconnected it, and with each breath you're going to see my FiO2 monitor drop. So even though my target is 100% FiO2, my delivered is dropping, so I have to take this alarm with seriousness. I have to immediately remove them off the vent and hook up another oxygen source. So hopefully that clarifies some stuff. I hope that gives you a good troubleshoot how to deal with this alarm. Again, Frank Turner at Biomed has gone ahead and tested all of the regulators on stars, and the direction will be that we're only going to be using regulators that we know where they come from. We shouldn't be using EMS regulators. We shouldn't run into this problem, but if we do run into this, hopefully that gives you the tools to deal with this. Thanks for now.